Alright. Oh, Lord of the Rings. Here we go.
Sauron is known by many titles: Lord of the Rings, Lord of Darkness, Lord of the Werewolves, and Lord of the World. Still, he is considered the Nameless One, whose name should not be pronounced lightly. Sauron's origin dates to the beginning of creation, when the Supreme Being, Eru Ilúvatar, brought forth a group of spirit creatures known as the Ainur. 14 of these Ainur became the Valar, divine leaders of the universe. The remaining Ainur became known as Maiar, lesser but still powerful spirits. Sauron, who originally received the name Mairan, was part of the Maiar. He was a pure and orderly being at first, who studied the craft of forging. But as time went on, Sauron became selfish and began to harbor a sense of dissatisfaction with the way other Maiar were leading the creation of the world. Sauron was eventually seduced by the promises of Morgoth, who had once been the most powerful Valar, but turned evil and went on to wage war against his former companions. Sauron always obsessed with order and perfection in all things. He believed that Morgoth would be able to create a perfect world, unaware Morgoth's true intention was to destroy all creation. Once on the path of darkness, Sauron quickly rose through the ranks of the evil army, serving as Morgoth's lieutenant. Sauron gained a fearsome reputation during this period. As a spiritual being of great power, Sauron changed forms numerous times during the First Age, assuming the form of a werewolf or vampire when he was at the height of his power. Eventually, the Valar attacked Morgoth and took him back in the chains to Valinor. But Sauron escaped and remained in Middle-earth. After the War of Wrath and the defeat of his master Morgoth, Sauron fled for a time to the east. For 1,000 years, Sauron was not seen in the west of Middle-earth. He went to the mountainous land of Mordor and began to build his mighty dark tower of Barad-dûr. With Morgoth trapped in the ends of the world, Sauron emerged as the second Dark Lord. He raised armies of orcs, trolls, and humans, luring them with promises of wealth. To attract allies from the powerful elven kingdoms, Sauron took on a new form. He became the beautiful Anatar, the Lord of Gifts. In this guise, he visited the elves, presenting himself as a friend with whom they could share his profound knowledge. He continued to use this disguise for the next few centuries, during which time he became friends with an elven lord named Celebrimbor. Celebrimbor was the most skilled craftsman in all the elven kingdoms. Obeying Sauron's instructions, he began forging the Rings of Power. A total of 19 rings were forged, which had powerful magics, ready to be activated at the right moment by Sauron, with the intent to imprison the minds of their users and manipulate them in his favor. Once the rings were made and distributed among men, dwarves, and elves, Sauron secretly created another ring, the One Ring, forged on Mount Doom in Mordor, controlling the other rings using dark magic. On the One Ring, Sauron inscribed the following words: "One ring to rule them all, one ring to find them, one ring to bring them all, and in darkness to bind them." The elves received 3 rings, the most powerful after the One Ring. The dwarves were given 7 rings, and men 9, for Sauron knew that the latter would be the easiest to corrupt due to their greedy nature. Sauron became the Lord of the Rings, but his plan failed. As soon as he placed the One Ring on his own finger, the elves, who had their own rings, sensed Sauron's evil presence in their minds and immediately took the rings off. Enraged by his failed plan, Sauron declared war against all the kingdoms of elves, men, and dwarves. He demanded that all the Rings of Power be given to him. The elves managed to hide the 3 most powerful rings, but the other 16 were captured by Sauron, and they were destroyed or lost. The 9 human kings who were given rings were all corrupted. They became the Nazgûl, spectral creatures and Sauron's greatest servants. Sauron managed to defeat many elven armies and dominate much of Middle-earth. However, when it seemed that he was about to destroy his enemies, an army of humans appeared to rescue the elves. These humans were known as the Númenóreans, and lived on the island west of Middle-earth. The armies of men and elves blocked Sauron's invasion, and he was arrested and taken to the island of Numenor, where he remains captive. Even imprisoned, Sauron counted on cunning and devised a plan to destroy Numenor. In a few years as a prisoner, Sauron gained the trust of the king and many lords of Numenor, promising them immortality if they would assemble a fleet and a large army to attack Valinor, the ancient holy land of the Valar in the west. Inspired by the desire for immortality, the humans of Numenor committed the blasphemy of setting sail and attacking Valinor. Then the creator god Ilúvatar sank the rebel fleet of ships and the island of Numenor. Sauron was captured in the catastrophe and his physical body destroyed, which caused him to permanently lose the ability to change shape. Even without his physical body, Sauron's spirit returned to Middle-earth. Weakened by his activities and creation of the One Ring, Sauron fled again to Mordor, where he built a new body and regained his strength. But before he regained some of his power, Sauron learned that some of the survivors of the Númenóreans had gone to Middle-earth and had established the kingdoms of Arnor and Gondor. Fearing the strengthening of these new human kingdoms, Sauron led a war against them. The exiled Númenóreans responded by forming the last alliance of elves and men, joining with the Elven King Gil-galad. During this war, Sauron single-handedly fought and killed the human king Elendil and Gil-galad. But Elendil's son, Isildur, took his father's broken sword and cut the One Ring from Sauron's hand. Since the ring contained much of Sauron's power and soul, he lost his body when it was removed from his hand. His armies fled, and Sauron's broken spirit escaped to Mordor, where he hid again. For much of the Third Age, Sauron remained hidden, but always acting as an evil force, instigating the orcs to gather and attack the human realms. Sauron knew that, if he recovered the One Ring, he could once again assume a physical form. So, he sent the Nazgûl in search of the ring. To Sauron's misfortune, the One Ring came into the hands of a small being named Frodo Baggins, a hobbit from the Shire, who inherited the ring from his uncle Bilbo Baggins. After going through many adventures and hardships, Frodo arrived at Mount Doom. The One Ring was thrown into the incandescent lava of the volcano, where it was finally destroyed. Feeling his source of power being dashed, Sauron's shadow rose like a huge dark cloud in the sky. His right hand rose as if he wanted to crush the world in his last breath. But a great wind blew, and the cloud was dispelled. Sauron was totally defeated and disappeared from Middle-earth.
Okay, I did not know a lot of the history before the Lord of the Rings movies. That was very good. There's also a great Wikipedia article on Sauron. But these YouTube videos really, with the imagery, I think, and the narrative is a little easier to follow rather than having to click on all these links within the Wikipedia article. Yeah, I didn't know Sauron was very vulnerable a lot of times. He got arrested and his body got destroyed. There's a lot they don't tell you in the main movies. But what's interesting is here we have non-fiction, and this J.R.R. Tolkien stuff is inspiring non-fictional people as if it were a sacred text. And nowadays Giorgia Meloni is the Prime Minister of Italy. So, let me read this. Wow. Wow. Dang. Huh. I don't consider Lord of the Rings fantasy. Man, this is so wild. I guess if the author originally, J.R.R. Tolkien, originally thinks of this stuff as fantasy, and then some readers later on say this is not fantasy as I read it, well, this, I think there's a fancy term called reader response theory, in which any book is really just what the reader imagines. Anyway, oof. Oh man. Wow. First female prime minister of Italy. First descended from post-fascist roots. Wow. The little dragon of the Italian undernet. Oh man. Uh, Now I watched this Captain Harlock movie too. Oof. Hmm. Oof. Oh my gosh, they have a picture of Hitler in this bookstore. Hmm. Oh man. All right. Well, that's a great article. I think in the US, we don't really pay attention to international comparative politics that much. That's what I've heard. And people from Europe are very, very knowledgeable, or at least a lot more knowledgeable than the average American about comparative politics of so many countries out there. Like, I had no idea this is, Italy's far right movement, and I can almost see, how Lord of the Rings is so inspirational. I know the music is very inspirational to me. Ed Sheeran's I See Fire inside the body. I see fire burning the soul. Fire burn the misty mountains cold. To dungeons dim and caverns old. He looked and stooped and mirrored me and saw a crown of stars appear. Alright, I have an idea to do another stream, so I'm not gonna sing those two songs too much. They definitely have a real connection, very deep connection with me and my soul, I think.